Murdered Rappers in Chicago, 2012 to 2024. RIP. War in Chicago documentary. In one American city, music has become both a dream and a death sentence. Between 2012 and 2024, Chicago lost an alarming number of young rappers, some famous, others just beginning, gunned down before their voices could fully be heard. These were not distant statistics. They were real lives, real futures erased in moments. The question is not whether this happened, but why it keeps happening. Stay with us as we uncover stories many avoid discussing. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to Legends of Black Fame for documentaries that expose truth, not myths. Lil Jojo. Lil Jojo, born Joseph Coleman, emerged from Chicago's South Side as one of the most talked about yet controversial voices of the early drill era. Growing up in Englewood, an area long affected by poverty and street conflict, Jojo began using music as both an outlet and a megaphone. His lyrics reflected the environment around him, raw, confrontational, and deeply rooted in neighborhood identity. While his career was brief, his impact on Chicago's rap landscape was undeniable. In the summer of 2012, Lil Jojo gained widespread attention after releasing the track 300K. The song directly addressed rival artists and crews, instantly spreading across social media and YouTube. Within days, Jojo became a recognizable name far beyond his local scene. At a time when drill music was rapidly gaining traction, his visibility grew faster than his ability to escape the dangers tied to it. The attention brought fame, but it also amplified existing tensions. On September 4, 2012, Lil Jojo was shot while riding a bicycle near the 6900 block of South Princeton Avenue. He was only 18 years old. Emergency responders pronounced him dead shortly after the attack. The killing shocked the city and marked a turning point in how closely Chicago drill music became associated with real-world violence. Law enforcement investigated multiple leads, but no arrests were ever made. Over time, authorities suggested the shooting was linked to ongoing street disputes, though the case officially remains unresolved. Jojo's death reverberated far beyond Chicago. Online reactions, tribute videos, and heated debates flooded the internet. Some peers mourned him openly, while others responded through music, fueling further controversy. His passing became a symbol of how quickly promise could turn into tragedy within an environment shaped by rivalry and retaliation. More than a decade later, Lil Jojo is remembered not only for the conflict surrounding his name, but for what his story represents. He was a teenager navigating fame in a city struggling with violence, caught between ambition and circumstance. His life and death remain a stark reminder that behind every headline is a young person whose future ended before it truly began. YPN Boomtown. YPN Boomtown-born Gisson Danner represented a different lane within Chicago's drill movement, one driven less by provocation and more by aspiration. Raised on the city's South Side, Boomtown grew up surrounded by instability, yet he carried a persistent belief that music could shift his circumstances. Unlike many of his peers, his approach focused on momentum and opportunity rather than rivalry, even as his sound remained firmly grounded in the drill aesthetic dominating Chicago in the early 2000s. Boomtown gained attention for his energetic delivery and vivid storytelling, drawing inspiration from artists who had already broken through nationally. His growing presence in the local scene led to meetings with industry insiders, and by late 2012, he had secured interest from Interscope Records, a major milestone for a teenager still navigating life in Chicago's most violent corridors. Friends and collaborators later described him as motivated, disciplined, and convinced his breakthrough was imminent. On January 2nd, 2013, Boomtown's trajectory came to a sudden end. After visiting a family member in the West Pullman neighborhood, he was shot while sitting inside a vehicle near 124th Street and South Union Avenue. Emergency services transported him to Roseland Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. He was 18 years old. The killing stunned those close to him, particularly given the absence of any known immediate conflict leading up to the attack. Authorities opened an investigation, but no arrests were announced. As with many similar cases during that period, limited cooperation and a lack of witnesses slowed progress. Boomtown's death became another statistic in a year when Chicago recorded more than 500 homicides, underscoring the scale of the crisis facing the city. In retrospect, YPN Boomtown's story stands as a portrait of unrealized potential. He was an artist on the brink of transformation, attempting to step beyond his environment rather than exploit it. His loss reinforced a painful truth: even those focused on leaving the streets behind were not immune to the violence shaping Chicago at the time. Johnny Boy Da Prince. Johnny Boy Da Prince occupied a quieter space within Chicago's rap ecosystem, yet his talent did not go unnoticed. Emerging from the city's west side, he built a reputation through melodic hooks and polished production qualities that distinguished him from the more aggressive drill sound dominating the airwaves. His music carried ambition without excess, suggesting a performer more focused on longevity than notoriety. Industry interest arrived swiftly. In early 2013, Johnny Boy's manager circulated his material among record label representatives, eventually reaching Atlantic Records. Executives reportedly responded, positively recognizing a voice capable of crossing regional boundaries. For a young artist still operating independently, the response validated years of effort and hinted at a sustainable future in music. That future vanished abruptly. In January 2013, Johnny Boy Da Prince was shot and left in an alley in the Garfield Park area. He died from his injuries shortly afterward. Law enforcement later classified the killing as a case of mistaken identity, a conclusion that deepened the tragedy. He was not believed to be the intended target, nor was he publicly linked to ongoing street disputes at the time. The investigation yielded few answers, no suspects were charged, and the case faded into the broader pattern of unsolved homicides that plagued Chicago during that era. For the music community, the loss felt particularly senseless. Here was an artist on the cusp of professional recognition, eliminated not because of rivalry or provocation, but circumstance. Johnny Boy's death highlighted another dimension of the city's violence, its randomness. Not every victim was deeply entrenched in conflict. Some were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. His story serves as a reminder that Chicago's crisis extended beyond gang lines, touching individuals whose only visible ambition was creative growth. Years later, Johnny Boy Da Prince is remembered less for controversy and more for promise, a reminder that in a city overwhelmed by violence, even silence offered no guarantee of safety. J Money. J Money, born Jerome Wood, was a well-known figure within Chicago's South Side long before his name became synonymous with tragedy. Unlike artists who gradually built an audience through music alone, J Money's reputation was deeply intertwined with his surroundings. He was associated with the Black Disciples, and his presence carried weight in both street circles and local rap culture. Those who knew him often described a volatile personality, charismatic, fearless, and unpredictable. Musically, J Money was not chasing mainstream validation. His lyrics reflected dominance, loyalty, and survival, mirroring the reality of the environment he inhabited. While he never achieved national fame, his name commanded respect within his neighborhood. That visibility, however, also made him vulnerable. In Chicago during the early 2000s, recognition could function as both protection and a target. On September 2, 2013, J Money received a phone call from a woman he knew asking him to help her run errands. He arrived later that evening at the 6600 block of South Rhodes Avenue in the Woodlawn area. Moments after pulling up, gunfire erupted. Witnesses reported that a nearby vehicle had been waiting. J Money was struck multiple times, including fatal wounds to the head. Despite immediate attempts to save him, he was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 21 years old. Speculation quickly followed. Some suggested the killing was a coordinated setup, a theory fueled by the precision of the attack. Others pointed to long-standing rivalries. Law enforcement opened an investigation, but no arrests were ever made. The case joined a long list of unresolved homicides that year, contributing to Chicago's reputation for low clearance rates during that period. J Money's death sent shockwaves through his community. Friends, relatives, and fellow artists expressed grief online, mourning someone they viewed as a cornerstone of their circle. His passing underscored a harsh reality. In a city overwhelmed by cycles of retaliation, longevity was never guaranteed. Years later, J Money's story remains a reflection of Chicago's street-level realities, where identity, loyalty, and environment can shape a life just as strongly as talent or ambition. L.A. Capone. L.A. Capone, born Leonard Anderson, symbolized youth potential and raw creativity within Chicago's drill movement. Raised on the South Side, he began recording music while still in his early teens, quickly developing a distinctive delivery marked by confidence and precision. Despite his age, L.A. Capone carried himself like a seasoned performer, earning admiration from peers and fans alike. By 2013, his momentum was undeniable. Tracks such as Round Here and Play for Keeps circulated widely online, positioning him as one of the most promising emerging artists in the city. Unlike many contemporaries, his appeal extended beyond neighborhood boundaries, reaching listeners across the country. Industry interest followed, and conversations about a major label future were already underway. On September 26, 2013, that future was abruptly erased. After leaving a recording studio near the 7000 block of South Stony Island Avenue Lay, Capone walked through an alley where he was ambushed. He suffered multiple gunshot wounds and was rushed to the hospital, but later died from his injuries. He was only 17 years old. The response was immediate and widespread. Fans flooded social media with tributes, stunned that someone so young and seemingly on the brink of success had been killed. Unlike many similar cases, this investigation progressed. In 2014, authorities charged 3 individuals with first-degree murder. A fourth participant later pleaded guilty and received a 45-year prison sentence, making L.A. Capone's case one of the few from that era to result in convictions. His death marked a defining moment in Chicago drill history. It demonstrated that even rising stars with industry attention were not insulated from violence. At the same time, the legal outcome showed that accountability, while rare, was possible. L.A. Capone is remembered today as a symbol of lost potential, a teenager whose talent hinted at longevity, but whose life ended before adulthood. His story remains one of the most poignant reminders of what Chicago lost during one of its most violent chapters. Darius. Darius, born Larius Briscoe, was an emerging rapper whose presence online made him a recognizable figure within Chicago's underground scene. Active on YouTube and social media, he used visuals and aggressive language to establish his identity, often leaning into provocation as a way to gain attention. His approach reflected a broader trend in the city's rap culture, where visibility and controversy frequently went hand in hand. Unlike artists aiming for industry acceptance, Darius focused on asserting dominance through performance and symbolism. His videos and lyrics openly mocked rival groups, creating a persona built around defiance. This approach drew an audience quickly, but also heightened risk. In Chicago during the early 2000s, online disputes rarely stayed confined to the internet. On December 16, 2013, Darius was shot in the Chatham neighborhood. He sustained a fatal gunshot wound to the head and was transported to a hospital where he later died. He was 19 years old. News of his death spread rapidly across social media, where friends and supporters expressed disbelief and anger. The abruptness of the incident reflected how quickly digital conflicts could translate into real-world consequences. Law enforcement initiated an investigation, but no suspects were publicly identified. As with many cases during that period, limited cooperation and fear within the community complicated progress. The absence of resolution left lingering questions about accountability and prevention. Darius's story illustrates the collision between performance and reality. His music blurred lines between expression and confrontation, making it difficult to separate artistic identity from lived experience. While his catalog was small, his impact was significant within his circle, serving as another example of how rapidly a young life could end amid escalating hostility. Today, Darius is remembered as part of a generation that grew up documenting itself online while navigating dangers offline. His death remains a stark reminder of how exposure, rivalry, and environment can converge with irreversible consequences. Lil Mark. Born Mark Campbell, emerged from Chicago's South Side during a period when local rap was increasingly shaped by rivalry-driven narratives. Affiliated with 051 Young Money, he was active in a tense environment where music often functioned as an extension of neighborhood disputes. His style leaned heavily on provocation, using lyrics to assert presence and challenge perceived enemies. While this approach brought attention, it also placed him directly in the crosshairs of ongoing conflicts. By early 2014, Lil Mark's name was circulating widely across social platforms, following the release of his track No Competition. The song openly referenced recent violent events and mocked rivals, intensifying already fragile tensions between opposing groups. Within days of its release, reports surfaced that attempts had already been made on his life, signaling how quickly verbal disputes could escalate. On March 28, 2014, Lil Mark was standing at a bus stop when an assailant approached and opened fire. He was shot in the head and later pronounced dead. He was 20 years old. The shooter fled in a van that was later discovered abandoned and burned, suggesting a planned effort to destroy evidence. The killing drew immediate attention due to the rapid sequence of events that preceded it, reinforcing how closely online activity and real-world violence were intertwined. Police launched an investigation, but no arrests were announced. As with many homicides tied to gang-related conflicts during that time, fear and silence within the community limited progress. Lil Mark's death added to a growing list of young artists whose careers ended as quickly as they began. His story reflects the dangers of using music as a weapon rather than an outlet. While his catalog was brief, the consequences were permanent. Lil Mark became another example of how visibility, when combined with hostility, could dramatically shorten a life. Years later, his name remains associated with a moment when words, reputation, and retaliation collided with fatal results. Big Glo Blood Money. Big Glo, also known as Blood Money, was born Mario Hess and occupied a respected position within Chicago's drill movement. As the oldest member of Glory Boys Entertainment GBE and a cousin of Chief Keef, he played a stabilizing role within the collective. Unlike many younger artists, Big Glo approached music with patience, discipline, and long-term vision. By 2013, he had released multiple projects that earned local recognition, including his mixtape, Drillavelli, and later, Drug Wars. His sound balanced gritty realism with structure, distinguishing him from peers whose work leaned heavily on shock value. Industry momentum followed, culminating in a record deal with Interscope Records, signaling his transition from underground status to broader recognition. Behind the scenes, those close to him expressed concern for his safety. Plans were reportedly being discussed to relocate him outside Chicago, acknowledging the growing risk associated with his profile. Unfortunately, those plans were never realized. On April 9, 2014, Big Glo was ambushed on South Elizabeth Street. Two gunmen opened fire, striking him multiple times. He was transported to Stroger Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. He was 26 years old. Investigators recovered more than 20 shell casings at the scene, indicating the intensity of the attack. The killing sent shockwaves through Chicago's rap community. Unlike many others, Big Glo was viewed as someone actively trying to distance himself from street turmoil while elevating his career. Despite speculation and rumors, no arrests were made, and the case remains unresolved. Big Glo's legacy is defined by timing. His death occurred just as opportunity aligned with preparation. He represented maturity within a volatile scene, proving that experience alone could not guarantee survival. Today, he is remembered as a cornerstone figure whose influence extended beyond music, embodying both the promise and peril of Chicago's drill era. OTF Nunu. OTF Nunu, born MacArthur Swindle, was among the youngest artists to emerge from Chicago's drill generation, yet his music reflected optimism rather than aggression. Raised on the South Side, Nunu gravitated toward rap as a way to express loyalty, friendship, and personal ambition. His sound carried enthusiasm and youthfulness, setting him apart in a scene often dominated by hostility. Closely associated with Only the Family, OTF, and related to Lil Durk, Nunu gained early exposure to professional studios and industry infrastructure. However, those who worked alongside him emphasized that his progress was driven by effort, not family ties. He was described as reserved, focused, and eager to improve, often spending long hours recording and refining material. His songs highlighted camaraderie and aspirations of stability rather than confrontation. Despite his creative focus, Nunu remained physically present in neighborhoods affected by persistent violence. On May 31, 2014, he was sitting inside a sport utility vehicle on the 700 block of East 87th Street when gunfire erupted. After being struck, the vehicle rolled forward and collided with a nearby storefront. Emergency responders declared him dead at the scene. He was 18 years old. Investigators linked the shooting to broader territorial disputes in the area, though Nunu's relatives repeatedly stated that he was not actively involved in street conflicts. No arrests were announced, and the case remains unresolved. His death occurred during a year when Chicago continued to struggle with high homicide rates, particularly among young men under 25. Nunu's passing resonated deeply because of his age and direction. He represented someone at the very beginning of adulthood, still forming his identity as an artist and individual. His catalog was limited, yet his potential was evident to those closest to him. Today, OTF Nunu is remembered as a reminder that even those focused on creativity and self-improvement were not insulated from the instability surrounding them. His life reflects how fragile progress could be in an environment where opportunity and danger existed side by side. FBG Duck. FBG Duck, born Carlton Weekly, stood as one of the most prominent and outspoken figures in Chicago's drill movement. Unlike many artists who eventually distanced themselves from the city, Duck remained closely connected to his roots throughout his career. His music conveyed defiance, resilience, and first-hand experience, making him both influential and controversial. Beginning around 2013, Duck steadily built recognition through independent releases. His visibility increased significantly in 2018 with the release of Slide, which later received a remix from 21 Savage. Over the next several years, Duck released 4 studio albums and numerous singles, maintaining consistent output and a loyal following. His work frequently addressed ongoing rivalries, making him a central voice in a long-standing feud between opposing factions. On August 4, 2020, Duck was shopping in the Gold Coast, an upscale commercial district in downtown Chicago. In the middle of the afternoon, multiple attackers exited a vehicle and opened fire. Duck was fatally wounded, while 2 bystanders were injured. He was 26 years old. The brazenness of the attack stunned the public, as the area was widely regarded as heavily monitored and relatively safe. Unlike many similar cases, Duck's murder led to a comprehensive federal investigation. Prosecutors later revealed that the shooting was the result of a coordinated plot connected to an extended gang conflict. In 2024, 6 individuals affiliated with O Block were convicted for their roles in the killing, providing rare legal resolution. FBG Duck's death marked a turning point in how authorities approached gang-related violence tied to music. His story illustrates how visibility, rivalry, and unresolved conflict can escalate beyond neighborhood boundaries. More than an artist, Duck became a symbol of a generation navigating fame within a cycle of retaliation. His loss remains one of the most consequential moments in Chicago rap history. King Von. King Von, born Davon Daquan Bennett, rose from Chicago's South Side as one of the most compelling storytellers of his generation. Unlike many drill artists whose lyrics relied on repetition or bravado, Von's music was narrative-driven, often unfolding like short films. His ability to describe lived experience with clarity and detail earned him recognition far beyond his local audience. Growing up amid instability, Von spent much of his youth navigating legal trouble and incarceration. Those experiences became the foundation of his artistic voice. After his release, he connected with Lil Durk and signed to Only the Family, launching a rapid ascent. Songs like Crazy Story showcased his talent for pacing and perspective, resonating with listeners who valued authenticity over polish. By 2020, Von had achieved multiple platinum certifications, positioning him as one of Chicago's most commercially successful drill artists. Despite relocating to Atlanta to pursue his career, unresolved conflicts followed him. On November 6, 2020, a confrontation broke out outside Monaco Hookah Lounge, involving two groups with existing tensions. What began as a physical altercation escalated quickly. Gunfire erupted, and King Von was struck multiple times. He was transported to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead. He was 26 years old. Authorities identified Timothy Lul Tim Leaks, an affiliate of rapper Quando Rondo, as the shooter. Leaks was arrested but later released after prosecutors dropped charges under Georgia's Stand Your Ground law in 2023. The legal outcome sparked debate, but underscored how quickly volatile encounters could spiral beyond control. King Von's death sent shockwaves through the music industry. He was at the height of his momentum, with projects lined up and a growing fan base. His storytelling ability suggested longevity beyond trends. Today, King Von is remembered as an artist who transformed personal history into powerful narrative. His life reflects both the possibilities and limitations of success when past conflicts remain unresolved. Bloodhound Lil Jeff. Bloodhound Lil Jeff was an underground rapper whose name circulated primarily within Chicago's local scene. Unlike artists driven by mainstream ambition, Lil Jeff focused on regional recognition, releasing music that spoke directly to his immediate environment. His work reflected street-level realities without the polish of industry backing, resonating with a tight-knit audience rather than a national fan base. Operating within the Bloodhound collective, Lil Jeff used raw delivery and direct language to establish credibility. His presence was shaped by proximity, performing recording, and living in neighborhoods deeply affected by violence. While his reach remained limited compared to larger names, his consistency earned respect among peers who valued authenticity over exposure. On a night in 2024, Lil Jeff was shot on the 6600 block of South Rhodes Avenue, a location already associated with multiple violent incidents over the years. Reports indicate he was struck approximately 15 times. Emergency responders transported him to a hospital where he later died. His age was not publicly confirmed. The severity of the attack highlighted the level of risk faced by lesser-known artists who lacked resources to distance themselves from danger. In the weeks following his death, tributes surfaced online, particularly from close friends and collaborators. Among them was Lil Sco, who expressed grief through social media posts before becoming a victim of gun violence himself just 1 month later. The proximity of these losses reinforced how tightly violence clustered within certain circles. As with many recent cases, Lil Jeff's killing remains unresolved. No suspects have been publicly identified, and the investigation has not produced arrests. His death reflects a broader pattern affecting underground artists, those without security relocation options or institutional protection. Bloodhound Lil Jeff's story underscores that notoriety is not a prerequisite for vulnerability. His life ended far from headlines, yet his loss carried weight within his community. He represents countless local voices whose stories rarely reach the national stage, but are equally shaped by Chicago's ongoing struggle with violence. Lil Sco/Lil Sco 89. Lil Sco, also known as Lil Sco 89, born Astrion Hogan was a rising figure within Chicago's underground rap community whose momentum was quietly building. Unlike artists driven by viral attention, Sco focused on consistency, releasing music, steadily performing locally, and collaborating with peers who shared similar backgrounds. His sound was direct and emotionally grounded, shaped by personal experience rather than theatrics. Sco's music reflected a balance between confidence and vulnerability. Listeners often noted his ability to convey urgency without exaggeration, giving his work a sense of realism that resonated with young audiences navigating similar circumstances. He was signed to a small independent label that described him as disciplined, motivated, and deeply invested in his craft. While his reach had not yet extended nationally, his trajectory suggested continued growth. On July 7, 2024, Lil Sco was involved in a verbal dispute in the Chatham neighborhood on Chicago's South Side near his girlfriend's residence. Later that evening, as Sco and a 16-year-old companion walked away from the location, gunfire erupted. Both were struck. Sco was transported to a hospital where he later died from his injuries. His friend was also killed. Sco's exact age was not publicly confirmed. Police responded quickly and identified a suspect, initiating a pursuit that escalated to involve specialized units. Despite these efforts, the individual escaped. No arrests were announced, and the investigation remains ongoing. The incident drew attention not only because of Sco's death, but because it illustrated how swiftly everyday disputes could turn fatal. Following his passing, tributes emerged from fans, collaborators, and his label, which emphasized Sco's work ethic and dedication. They highlighted his near-constant output and determination to build a sustainable career through persistence rather than controversy. Lil Sco's death represents the fragility of progress in environments shaped by unpredictability. He was an artist still forming his voice, whose future depended on time he never received. His story adds to a growing list of young creatives lost before their potential could fully materialize. These stories force us to confront an uncomfortable question: where does art end and responsibility begin? Chicago's drill scene gave many young voices a platform, yet it also mirrored conflicts that never stayed confined to music. Were these artists victims of their environment, or did the culture surrounding them help normalize the danger? There is no simple answer, and that is why the conversation matters. If change is ever going to happen, it must start with honest discussion, not silence. Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments and let us know how you see it. Subscribe to Legends of Black Fame for more real stories that history shouldn't forget.